Hi, I'm Kelli Masters, and I'm excited for you to hear Change Agent. I'm going to share 3 keys with you that are incredibly important, so let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am excited to bring you a message about being a change agent. What does that actually mean? What does that look like? And how do you truly become an agent of change? I feel like my entire life has been about change and about our theme, embracing disruption. There have been things that have been disrupted in my own life and in the world around me that I have embraced and I have learned from. And so I really just wanted to focus in on 3 key lessons, 3 keys that I have embraced as an agent of change. Just so you know my background, I am actually an agent. I am a sports agent. I have been representing athletes, professional athletes, Olympians for the last 15 years. I'm also an attorney. I went to law school really looking for a way to impact the world. God got a hold of my life in the middle of law school. I turned my heart over to Jesus in the middle of law school, and quite honestly, I thought I was supposed to drop out of everything and go be a missionary. I thought that ministry was the only way to serve. And after actually spending time listening, learning, and truly loving, I realized that God had a plan and a purpose for my life. I had a calling on my life that I was meant to fulfill. And it actually didn't involve me leaving and going to a foreign country. It involved me staying right where I was and continuing to lean into that calling and that purpose. So becoming a change agent. Back when I realized, when everything started to become clear to me that my entire life and experiences, my experiences in sports, my experiences in media and journalism, my skill and training as a lawyer, and even my experiences as a lawyer, all led me to one place where I discovered that actual purpose that God intended for my life, and that was to work with athletes, to work with professional athletes, to empower them, to inspire them, to protect them and advocate for them. Everything lined up when I did those 3 things that I just mentioned: listening, learning, and loving. I didn't intend to become a disruptor in an industry, but I did. And I actually set out really just to fulfill the direction that I had found that God had put me on the path to. But when I first went into the industry, I looked around and I realized I was pretty much the only person that looked like me or even thought like me. At the time in the industry, there were really no other women representing athletes at a high level, not in the NFL certainly. There were also very few believers and people who seemed really true, a lot of good people, but people who were truly committed to integrity and excellence at the highest levels. I realized that I brought something different to the table, not just because I was a woman, but because of the approach that I wanted to take to the industry. And initially, it was not well received. Many other agents told me that I didn't belong in the business. I was told to my face by coaches, by sometimes parents, that they just didn't think a woman could handle the job of being an NFL agent. And I had to dig deep. I had to truly dig deep and go, okay, is this where I'm supposed to be, or are these people right? I listened. Isn't that interesting? I listened even to the people who disagreed with me, because I wanted to understand where they were coming from, and I wanted to understand how to show them what I believed and how I was to convey that with strength. But I wouldn't understand how to explain where I was coming from unless I actually listened to where they were coming from. When you listen, you educate yourself, and in turn, it allows you to understand how to educate other people. And I think that is something that a lot of times, especially in today's culture, that we do a lot of talking and a lot of expressing our views, and it's easy to send out a post on social media and not actually listen. So that is the first key to being an agent of change right where you are in your own life, in your own community, in your country. being an agent of change requires you to listen. I remember, and this is taking a few steps back, when I was actually in law school, and there were moments when I would be alone, and a lot of times at the library studying or walking back and forth between the library where I studied and my apartment where I also studied. Law school requires a lot of reading, a lot of study, but I had a lot of time alone with my own thoughts. And I remember truly wanting to hear God, wanting to hear the voice of God. That was something I'd always wrestled with my entire life, growing up kind of in and out of church, going to church because people just go to church in the Bible Belt. Sometimes you just go because your parents go or because that's what everybody around you is doing. And so I'd been to church, I'd called myself a believer, but I struggled with the fact that when I read the Bible, God spoke to people. And I always wondered, why does that not happen now? And something in me told me, yes, God still does speak to people. So I wanted to learn how to listen. And that was one of my biggest cries in those alone moments in the middle of law school when God truly was chasing after me. And I was racing towards him, trying to understand. I just wanted to know I could hear him. I wanted to know I could listen and hear the voice of God. So that's where my fascination with listening started. I wanted to hear what was being said to me, not necessarily in an audible voice, but truly listen. And I discovered that by spending time with him, by listening, by spending time in the Word, by reading, by listening to others who were where I wanted to be in life and had the relationship with God that I wanted to have, I learned how to listen. Incredible, incredible lesson that I think all of us have to remind ourselves every single day. The Word says, "My sheep hear my voice, I know them and they follow me." That means that we can all hear the voice of God, and God is speaking to us constantly if we will just dig deep and listen. If I had not been listening, I may have missed my calling and my purpose. In the middle of my very normal law practice, 5 years into my law practice, I was not working with athletes yet. I was just had a normal litigation practice, and then also had decided that going the nonprofit law route, if I wasn't going to get to be a missionary or a humanitarian, at least I could learn nonprofit law and help missionaries and humanitarians. So that was part of my law practice. But in doing that, that opened the door to working with my very first professional athlete and his family. And I'll never forget that athlete's mother stopping me at one point and saying, "Why weren't you there in the beginning? If you had been an agent, we would have chosen to work with you." And what if I hadn't been listening, really listening? What if I had not had my ears open to something new, to something that I'd never thought of before, something that I had never considered before? Listening allowed me to open my mind and open my eyes to the opportunity that really was right in front of me. So listening first and foremost to God and what he has to say to you, listening for opportunities, for things that may open your eyes and open your mind. And the third thing that I'll say about listening is I've done an awful lot of listening over the last few weeks. I represent now, fast forward 15 years from making that decision to become an agent and listen and overcome the objections of people that just didn't understand that a woman could do the job. 15 years later, there are a number of women doing what I do and have followed in my footsteps. And I now have over 30 athletes that I represent, that I advocate for, that I protect, and that I mentor. And I've done a lot of listening. And I've heard from my athletes, I've heard things that have blown my mind. I have learned so much from them just by listening, truly, truly listening and hearing what they have to say and allowing it to expand my understanding and really make me a better agent of change by listening. It all starts with listening. What's the next thing I said? Learn. We can listen, but that has to lead to learning. That has to lead to expanding our minds. As I mentioned before, the way that you expand your mind and become a better change agent is by listening and learning. Educate yourself. When growing up, I wrestled a lot with being a perfectionist and being afraid of failure. And a lot of times, fear and the fear of not seeming like I was enough or I didn't know enough kept me from asking questions. It kept me from stepping out. It kept me locked up. That's what fear does. Fear locks you up. This need to be perfect keeps you from growing. And growing is learning. So I had to realize that I didn't need to act like I had it all together or had all the answers. I actually needed to be open and say, you know what, I don't have all the answers. I need to learn. I need to ask questions. I need to educate myself and understand where people are coming from, people that think differently than I do, people that have different opinions than I do. How do I really know what I believe unless I'm challenged, unless I learn what other people believe that may not be the same thing? Learning is so critical. It's so easy to stay in our comfort zone and our bubble and surround ourselves with people that think the same as we do and stay in that echo chamber where we only hear things that support what we believe. And I'm not saying that you can't have convictions and strongly held beliefs that are core to who you are. I certainly do, and as believers, we have certain things that are just non-negotiables. For me, that's my love for Jesus and knowing that he is my Lord and Savior and that he is the Son of God. For me, I will listen and I will learn what other people say, but that's something that's immutable in me. But what I am saying is there are always ways that we can expand our understanding. Reading about history, reading and learning from people that maybe are different than we do or have had different life experiences than we do. We're so wired to make assumptions. You know, it's interesting as we get older, we base everything, most of the time we base our beliefs on personal experience. And we use personal experience to fill in holes, to fill in gaps of things that we don't know. And a lot of times we fill those in with assumptions. And if those assumptions are not being shaped by learning, then we're going to make the wrong assumptions. So guard yourself, guard your mind, guard your heart against just making assumptions about people, about events, about circumstances. Dig in and learn. Ask questions. Don't be afraid of not looking like you have all the answers or fear of what people might think of you. Expand your mind. Learn, grow. That's, as I said, that's what I've been doing these last few weeks, especially with all of the amazing athletes that I get a chance to work with. I've been learning from them. And it was always important for me to teach them, but they're teaching me, all of my athletes, because they all have different experiences and they want to learn. When they see that I want to learn, they want to learn too. And learning and being willing to expand your mind allows people around you to also ask questions and to learn and to expand their minds and grow. Being a change agent is about listening and it's about learning. The last thing that I'll say is it all has to be done from a place of love. I shared the other day that I believe love wins. And someone actually pushed back on me and disagreed and said, no, love doesn't always win. And I said, you know what, that's an interesting perspective. Let's talk about that. And I realized that we were talking about two totally different things. My friend saw love as weakness. I see love as power. And I was able to share with her my perspective on love. To me, God is love. Love is power. It is empowering. It is a powerful force. It is the exact opposite of hate. Hate destroys. Hate comes from the enemy. The word says that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That comes from a place of hate. What if we came from a place of love? Love builds. Love receives and wants to improve and wants to show someone that they are valued. Love makes people feel valued and heard and lifted up. Love also put Jesus on the cross. Think about that. Jesus went to the cross for us, the ultimate act of obedience, the ultimate act of laying down his life for his friends, our example. He went to the cross because of love. Love put him there. Love also raised him from the dead. Love is the most powerful thing in the universe. And we have an opportunity to have it in our own lives and in our own hearts. And I would ask you this, if you're wanting to be a change agent, if you're wanting to make an impact and make a difference, is that coming from a place of love? Love for others, love for Jesus, love for your fellow man, love for the calling that you've been given, wanting to be obedient to that calling out of a place of love? Is that the driving force, or is it something else? And I would challenge you, if it's coming from anywhere else besides from a place of love, it's probably going to fail and won't be as strong as what it would be if it was driven by love. And there are so many things, so many parts of love: forgiveness, calling people to rise up and be better versions of themselves. That's what love does. Hate pushes people down, makes them feel like victims. Let's raise up victorious people around us. Let's be victorious in our lives by looking to love as the answer. It's always the answer. Love always wins. I want to thank you so much today for joining me for this brief message of how to become an agent of change. You've got to listen, you've got to learn, and you've got to love. Thank you so much.
David Skidmore here with Kelli Masters, and just got done with Change Agent today. You know, how to step out, how to be a change agent. And Kelli just talked to us about the importance of listening, learning, and loving. So I want us to go up to 60,000 foot view and then bring it back down. So those are very important for us as far as love goes. When you look at how we can really practically engage and practically listen, what is just like a small action step that we could start taking to be better listeners right now?
I really think it starts first thing with ourselves. And as we start our day, first of all, are we listening? Are we taking time, first of all, to get in a quiet place and listen to what God is trying to teach us? Let him guide our thoughts. I'm a big journaler. I like to journal in the morning, but sometimes I can just kind of get lost in my own thoughts. And I've started trying to call out in my own life, what are some assumptions I'm making? What are some things that I believe in? Why do I believe them? And am I willing to maybe release some of those assumptions and learn from other people? And so in my quiet time and in our quiet time, we can start to identify things of why do I think this way? Why am I assuming something? Do I really know why? And am I willing to release that assumption and learn about it and actually really listen?
So good, because a lot of us, myself included, sometimes when I'm listening, I'm really looking forward to getting my point across. And so, you know, when the conversation starts going and you begin to have different perspectives moving, how do you stay engaged and keep yourself open to being a listener in those situations?
Yeah, I think that's maybe human nature, and taking it to a very benign conversation. You hear someone talking about a trip they took somewhere. You know, I went to Fiji and it was beautiful, and you're like, well, I can't wait to talk about my trip that I took that was so beautiful and so great. And instead, why don't we just tell that voice inside of us that's telling us we have to contribute, we have to respond, tell that to be quiet and just listen. And I've learned also asking questions. If you're really listening, it's going to lead you to ask more questions than it is just respond. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So yeah, listen with the intent of learning more and asking questions.
And finally, you talked about loving. And so when we talk about loving people well, like what is one small step we could take? Because, you know, sometimes love, we talk about love thy neighbor, and, you know, we want to be a movement of love, and love can seem really big. But if we really are taking steps of love, like what's just one small step we could take as change agents at this time to love well?
You know, I think we're so quick to call out what we see that's wrong. We should, but I've lately been taking a step of calling out the good that I see in people, and I've started noticing when people do things out of love and are driven by love and are serving, or they're doing something that's selfless. And I'll always tell them now, you really love well.
Oh, so
And that
good.
just encourages them to keep loving well. And it also challenges me, am I loving well? Am I being judgmental? Am I being, am I thinking just about myself, or am I really genuinely loving others well, the way Jesus calls us to?
Oh, so good. So we want to be people who listen. We want to be people who learn, and we want to be people who love. That's the path to being a change agent. Thanks for coming in and talking to us today about
Thank
that,
you
Kelli.
so much. Absolutely.